Once upon a time, there lived a girl who physically lived in reality, but mentally lived in a different world. That world was far, but also very close. While she functioned in reality, she didn't see the real world the same as others did. She dreamed big and was often found with a book in her hand. It wasn't unusual for the girl to feel like an outcast or different. However, every once in a while, she would come across another dreamer, similar to herself. It was only when she stumbled upon a strange-looking book at the library one day that changed her world entirely. Just 21 pages in, she realized that she wasn't alone in her thinking. The clock struck 9. Reluctantly, Bastien's thoughts turned back to reality. He didn't like books in which dull, cranky writers describe humdrum events in the very humdrum lives of humdrum people. Reality gave him enough of that kind of thing. Why should he read about it? Besides, he couldn't stand when a writer tried to convince him of something. And these humdrum books, it seemed to him, were always trying to do just that. Bastien liked books that were exciting or funny, or that made him dream. Books where made-up characters had marvelous adventures. Books that made him imagine all sorts of things. Because one thing he was good at, possibly the only thing, was imagining things so clearly that he almost saw and heard them. When he told himself these stories, he sometimes forgot everything around him and awoke, as though from a dream. This book was called The NeverEnding Story, a classic novel released in 1979. It was then later turned into several movies in the 80s. It's also referenced in the most recent Stranger Things season. You know, the song Dustin sings for his girlfriend no one else believes he has. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, I highly recommend you do. This isn't my favorite book and movie because I enjoy fantasy, but because of what it means to me. There are several themes and takeaways from this story, and I'm confident each person can learn something from their visit to Fantasia or Fantastica. The excerpt I read earlier was a passage that stuck out to me. Now, here's where some may think I may belong to the crazies. So let me explain. I don't prance around looking for witches or wizards or unicorns, although I would love to go on some ghost tours. Anyway, I choose to believe that the world in which we live in is full of endless possibilities. Nothing is truly impossible. What I'm trying to say is that reality doesn't have to be humdrum. I always told my parents that I refused to live a life where it was the same every day, boring and dull. I did fairly well in school, but I hated it. I did have a couple teachers that brought their subjects to life, but the rest of the time, I was just bored. While I loved to learn, I was almost offended that a subject's magic and excitement wasn't shared. I know everything in life can't be exciting, but come on. We spend our entire young lives in school as children, teens, and young adults. Where's the excitement? The thrill, the adventure. School's the perfect place to inspire young minds, and if you like to read, The Alchemist, find your personal legend. But this isn't a stab at the school system, or government, or teachers. I myself am an educator, and have the utmost respect for all the teachers, coaches, and mentors of the world. My point being, sometimes I had to create my own inspiration. Bastien now realized that not only was Fantastica sick, but the human world as well. The two were connected. He had always felt this, though he could not have explained why it was so. He had never been willing to believe that life had to be as gray and dull as people claimed. He heard them saying, "Life is like that." But he couldn't agree. He never stopped believing in mysteries and miracles. I had no problem creating my own mysteries and miracles and inspiration. I turned to the one thing that inspired me the most: the arts. Books, poems, plays, movies, shows, dancers, artists. I loved reading books and watching movies because I could dive into a new world and experience new adventures and lessons. I'm sure you've experienced the horror when you're so engulfed in a TV show on Netflix and the episode ends and then it prompts you to another show and not another episode. Or when you finish a movie or a book and you just sit there and try to gather yourself. Many turn to the arts for different reasons. One of my good friends had told me when she was younger, her parents were arguing a lot and were headed towards a divorce. Life was sad and messy, but one day she decided to read a series many of us have come to know and love, Harry Potter. She told me that when her parents would argue and things got tough at home, she would go to her room, open up one of those magical books, and trade her pain and suffering in this world for a one-way ticket to Hogwarts. I came across many dancers in my dance career that came to dance to literally dance away pain, sadness, anger, fear. Dance wasn't just an escape, but a medicine, a method of survival. I was quite lucky in the way that I was brought up as a child. While I did suffer from bad things, many had it worse. My escape to dance wasn't necessarily to heal me or escape pain, although that did come later. I used it because I could be whoever I wanted. Each dance routine or combination, I could be somebody else, or a different version of me. I could play characters and act out scenarios I hadn't yet experienced. While we live in reality and have to function in reality, I fear that we forget to dream. Getting caught up in everyday life without a little sparkle here and there terrifies me. I don't want to live a boring life. I seek adventure and magic. We are in charge of finding our adventure and magic. But sometimes creating our stories must come at a price. But I'll tell you what, that price is worth it. Must I lose everything? Bastien said. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. Many times I changed my path, or life changed my path, and I would blame myself, thinking that I had completely messed up, was a failure, and on a road leading to nowhere. It doesn't help that I'm really hard on myself, but because I refuse to quit and I refuse to stop chasing my dreams, life always had a funny way of working itself out. I did everything wrong, Bastien said. I misunderstood everything. Moonchild gave me so much, and all I did was harm. Harm to myself and harm to Fantastica. Damiola gave him a long look. No, she said. I don't believe so. You went the way of wishes, and that is never straight. You went the long way around, but that was your way. There is no simple way of getting there, but every way that leads there is the right one. Chasing your dreams is never easy. Neither is creating the life you've imagined for yourself. You will fail, and you will fall. But each time you stand back up, you are that much stronger than before. Bastien was about to put the copper-colored book back into his satchel, but then he stopped. No, he said aloud in the stillness of the attic. Atreyu wouldn't give up because things were getting a little rough. What I've started, I must finish. I've gone too far to turn back. Regardless of what may happen, I have to go forward. Our lives are our stories, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if the whole world knows your name or not. You aren't creating your story for anyone else but you. The coolest part about your story is that it doesn't end when your life does. Why? Because throughout your life you have inspired and spread your magic upon others, and they take that magic and bestow it upon someone else, and so on and so forth. We are each our own never-ending story, and we help one another create our never-ending stories. So dream as big as you can. Wander as far as your legs or luck dragon will take you. And remember that the world is full of things you don't see.